Glenn, Dodger Town 76 Fungo. Today I'd like to have a conversation about how I am starting to change the way I collect and a new strategy that I came up for myself. And also I'll be showing some cards that I picked up from a flea market. I wasn't going to showcase these cards mainly because they're common and they are players that are not so good, but they fit right into my collection. As you will see, there's a lot of 87 top cards that I picked up, and I already have a fat stack of them in my collection, so I was thinking about doing a set. And I started to reflect on it and realized it would cost a lot of money and would be a lot cheaper if I just bought a set. And I asked myself, am I a set builder? I never desired to do so before. El Benchos and common cards are not fun for me. There are too many other cards I want to have. And I'm not collecting for investment, but strictly for my entertainment, relaxation, and to have fun. This recent pickup inspired me to make a video on the makeup and evolution of the Dodger Town 76 Fungo collection. So I came up with this strategy, and I'm going to try to stick to it. There will always be my team PC, which is a forever collecting endeavor for me. And I have 5 teams I collect. Obviously, Dodgers being one of them. They are my favorite all-time team because of the memories of my grandfather taking me to Dodger Town for spring training. And the Reds. The Reds had all my favorite players and one of my favorite coaches, Sparky Anderson. They were always exciting to watch, but mainly the memories of me and my father watching his favorite team play on the old boob tube. I also collect the Orioles because of nostalgia. My old baseball coach would take us to go see their minor league team when I was really young. I started following the Tigers and became a fan when Miguel Cabrera left the Marlins and went to play for them. He was a favorite of me and my father's. And so when he left, it was heartbreaking, and I started following the Tigers. Also, I follow the Phillies. And let me show you a few cards that I did pick up on this 87 Topps. Luis Aguero. Bruce Ruffin. Rookie Cup. Greg Gross. Steve Jeltz. I always liked the 87 Topps set. Not my favorite set of the 80s, but I do like it. Dan Schatzter. Milt Thompson. And a checklist, 397 to 528. But that was for my Phillies PC. I collect them because they had so many players that I liked back in the days, like Mike Smith, Steve Carlton, and Pete Rose. But my favorite memory is when my uncle went on vacation and brought me back a baby blue, maroon, and Pete Rose jersey, and a pair of maroon suede Pumas to match. And he even had fat shoelaces. Sometimes, even though I love these players and want all their cards, they can get boring just from the fact that I used to own them before and saw them for so many years. Before we continue the conversation, let me show you a few more cards that I picked up. This is Pepe Freitas, and that is for my nickname collection. And this guy had a negative WAR, but it is for my nickname PC. For my Tigers PC, I got a Steve Kemp, Pretty good outfielder. And a Jim Beattie. And a 90s card of Mark Grace. Upper Deck Collector's Choice. This guy was such a clutch hitter. Very good shortstop as well. And I will always do player runs of players that I enjoyed watching when I was a kid and who were heroes to me. Just for the nostalgia. Many of them will be cheap and fast to build, but will take a little bit of focus from me because there's so much that I want. And not to say I won't discover some other player that had great stats and history that I did not know about, but I may desire his card. That's what's so great about this hobby. It goes on forever, and I truly don't have enough time in life or financial means to do so. The players I enjoyed watching when I was a kid and who I focus on, this is my main list. Steve Garvey, Willie McCovey, Eddie Murray, Ron Cey, Greg Nettles, Brooks Robinson, Mike Smith, George Brett, Pete Rose, Joe Morgan, Dave Loops, Johnny Bench, Steve Yeager, Carlton Fisk, Mark Bellinger, Ozzie Smith, Alan Trammell, Robin Yount, Dave Concepcion, Larry Boa, Steve Carlton, Catfish Hunter, Phil Negro, Nolan Ryan, Tom Seaver, Carl Yadzinski, Dave Parker, and Fred Lynn. And I'll show you some more cards later. But let's get back to this conversation. So I'm starting to collect players that I enjoyed watching in the 90s and early 2000s. This opens up so many possibilities and thousands of different types of cards to collect. There are a lot are overlooked cards from this area that are now coming into their own. It's a fascinating way to look how cards were made then and the technology that went into it and how they are made now. With that said, I also will be collecting ultra modern cards as well because I like watching baseball and there's a lot of players I admire and I like to collect their cards. But one thing I notice with ultra modern and semi modern cards, and this is my opinion, and I believe it reflects in the cards today, that so many of these cards all look the same, and it becomes hard to distinguish one from another. So let me show you an example of my PC of Miguel Cabrera. This is just a small sample, but a lot of these chrome mirrored finished cards look the same to me. And they only used about 3 or 4 different photos. There's not a whole lot of variation. And they can get kind of boring. When you got a couple of 100 cards that look the same, you know what I mean? So like this one looks like basically like all the others, except for the border's a little different, but I don't know. Could be just me. But this is one of his better ones. At least there's some color to it. So I'm changing directions in how I collect. And I chose a few players that I enjoyed watching from the late 90s and early 2000s. Players who would not break the bank, and player cards that have hundreds, if not thousands, of player day cards. When these cards were being produced, there were so many different companies competing against each other. the days before this monopoly that we have today. This is what I will be focusing on, and of course, some other players may be added as my knowledge is gained. But I figured this would be the cheapest way to get into it. And these are the players that I chose, that I really enjoyed watching. It was Mark Grace, Cal Ripken Jr., which I have a lot of his cards already. Barry Larkin, one of my favorite shortstops. Another favorite shortstop, very exciting to watch, Omar Vizquel. One of the greatest batters of all time, Barry Bonds. My all-time favorite left-handed pitcher, the big unit, Randy Johnson. The professor, right-handed pitcher, Greg Maddux. And catcher, Ivan Rodriguez, in which Johnny Bench really admired. I hope I didn't lose you all with this conversation, but let's get back to looking at some of these 87 tops. And all these cars are in really good condition. I really did like this set. It wasn't my favorite 80s set, but I do like them. And I tell you what, I really miss the old Cleveland Indians uniforms. Pat Clements. Bobby Witt. And I believe that's Bobby Witt Jr.'s father. Tim Walchick. Clint Hurdle. Mike Woodward, which had I believe he had a negative WAR. Manager card. Jim Fergosi. Rob Deere. Bob James. Even though you pick up these old cards and you start doing stats and finding out the history of these players, like Dave Righetti, which was a fantastic pitcher, not one of my favorites, but he was okay. He won an award of the Rolaids Relief Award 2 times. I never even heard of the Rolaids Relief Award. Pretty interesting. And I believe they did away with that in 2012. And the last 87 card is a Julio Cruz. In our last part of our conversation, when I purchase ultra modern cards, I'm going to try to stick to rookies and serial number cards, unless I find good deals on an autograph or game used relic. But sometimes the bright rainbow colors get to me, especially if I'm making a player run of a player that I like. For instance, Matt Olson or Paul Goldschmidt. I might try to collect all their colors. I'll see you all next video, and hopefully you'll stick around to see what happens next year. Thank you, and I appreciate you all for watching. Peace be upon you all. Be good to yourself and others. Ciao.